Hey everyone, today for another vlog, and today I want to talk about the victim versus proactive mindset. So I think it's pretty straightforward, but I just want to share like how the last few days have gone. So I came back from holiday on Thursday, and at work it was quite a fucking mess. Like, it's one of those situations where I work in the intersection between software and finance, math. And so we're basically dealing with it's not like a programming thing per se, but it's like a software that allows you to to encode formulas right into some type of calculator software thingy. But the problem is that that software is so obscure that basically no one knows how to use it, and there just happened to be a problem with like one of the processes that involve that calculator. So long story short, problem in automated process. No one knows how to use the fucking thingy, and it came on to my team because that's kind of what we have to do. Yeah, so I just had to like pick up the pieces after I came from holiday. It was quite the emotional whiplash, going from like not having to do anything and feeling pretty great to pretty stressful Friday and Monday. I feel better though. I think I don't know the situation is like, so I have to sneeze. Yeah, so I had to sneeze. The situation, I don't know if the situation is under control, but at least I understand it better. The problem is that the reason why it's kind of stressful in the situation is because it's kind of like know a time pressure for you to fix it as soon as possible. It's not like as soon as possible, but like in they wanted to get it done before the weekend, but I wasn't able to. But I don't know. So far, no real complaints. But yeah, so I noticed as I was dealing with the situation, there was a lot of wanting to run away from that situation. Like wanting to blame someone else or saying how I don't know how to deal with the problem anyway. But the thing is, like, no one knew how to deal with the problem. So like the fact that I was had to take part of it is just well. I mean, it's not like I'm worse than anyone what at it. So I definitely felt a lot of like victim energy. Right? I think as a kid, I really had that a lot. Where every time a situation was overwhelming, I would just basically play like the victim card and like cry so that like my parents would do something about it or something. And I realized that I mean I don't just cry about problems as someone comes to fix it, right? But in some ways it hasn't really left me that victim energy, and I noticed that it really hampers my life. It really makes it enjoyable to deal with some problems, and it makes me feel small. Makes me feel like I can't deal with my problems anymore. But in many ways, like it's one of those things that it doesn't take a lot to really change uh like it takes a subtle shift which can be difficult to reach, but like in many ways it can be really easy, right, to just feel the other side. And the other side is that I'm simply not a helpless kid anymore. I mean, I'm in my 20s, so it's not like I'm some incredibly mature individual or something. I'm still a kid in the grand scheme of things. I'm still a kid, right? I'm not like a helpless literal kid who has to depend on their parents and stuff. I can use my own judgment. I can ask other people for help, but without being a victim. I just simply ask for their opinion and stuff, and such and such. And yeah, that's really like the difference between victim mindset versus like more of a. I don't really know what would be the opposite. I'm not sure it's a great title. Maybe like proactive mindset, something like that. Where you really just you don't. The victim mindset basically consists like running away from your problems, right? Once you get too overwhelming, the proactive mindset is more like facing them, and not just facing them, but like really wanting to solve them even before they arise. Um, it's obviously not this, victim and reactive are not really the same thing, but I feel like they're kind of coupled, right? At least one is a subset of the other. I feel. Seems to me like people who are victims, they never want to like solve the roots of their problems, and so they always get stuck in that drama of solving things and sometimes things get a bit better, and then then there's a new problem and so on. Like, yeah, it's a very big cycle that I notice in myself, and also like many of the people I was around with. Like, it's not really surprising that like people with victim mindsets tend to like cluster together, honestly, when you think about it. And but when you actually see it, it's quite different. Like a lot of video game communities, I would say, have this sort of the clustering effect of people who kind of feel like victims, but they don't really want to like make that explicit. So like it's kind of like an implicit bond. Sometimes it's very explicit and you can see it very clearly, right? But sometimes it's way more implicit. Like like the incels and such, right? But often it's way more implicit, but you can kind of feel it in the tone if you kind of step back. From the outside, it's probably very clear, right? Like the cluster of victim mentality that I'm talking about. But from the inside, it's not always as clear, right? Because obviously, um, assumptions and such are blind to you because you take them as true, right? So if you think you're worthless deep down, well, obviously you assume it to be true, which is why it's difficult to see things differently. Um, I guess I guess I could segue into like how someone could like break away from victimizing. I'm not sure. I think it's like many things. It's a very messy and not unclear process. But I think the general, I think the general sense is just that it really starts with wanting it. Right? A lot of things. I mean, as dumb as it might sound, a lot of change happens because you genuinely want it, and you try many different things over a long period of time, essentially. Um, I don't really know what to say. I would say it's like an iterative process, or like doing things in the real world and not just sitting and trying to fix your problems at home, which can be important. But it's important to like introspect and such. But I think the key part is like really the iterative process to show that you can really trust yourself. And trusting yourself is not necessarily about like achieving things, in my opinion. Sometimes it's simply, sometimes actually failing and realizing that you can fail without the world falling apart is actually quite a useful experience. Right? Like sometimes, sometimes it's sometimes people feel like what they need is like to be so good that they can never fail. But often, what you need to realize is that failure is actually uh, way less harsh than you might imagine it. Right? Like you could sort of think it like would you rather go on a rope with the sense that you could never fail, or would you rather go on a rope that, with a sense that even if you failed, you wouldn't die, right? Like imagine like a rope high above the sky versus like just a rope a few meters above the ground, right? Like, would you rather be really good and go on the first situation, or would you rather be like just decent or average and go on the second situation, right? Like, which one would you feel more safe in? It's kind of interesting to think about that. But I mean, this example was kind of bad, honestly. But like, what I'm saying is that yeah, just I feel like just the experience of doing things and realizing that you can really fail and you can just handle that failure. I think that's really powerful, actually. And of course, besides the obvious thing that sometimes you do succeed and you do get things, you do succeed and do things better than you expected, right? So I think it is important to do things in the real world, just to have like a grounding, something to ground yourself in, right? Like something very tangible, such as like yesterday I did push-ups and I did something to feel good in my body. That kind of thing, right? Like not just trying to feel good about yourself or something, but really just doing things. Maybe not even trying to get any results, like how to say, any like internal result from them. Just honestly, I think sometimes it's really just good to focus on the external results, such as health and being in shape, or having consistent sleep schedule and all that. I think that can be quite nice, but I feel like I'm kind of rambling, right? So I started talking about this, like how to get out of a victim mentality. But I think the true answer is that it's a messy process. It's iterative, and it really just takes the willingness to get out of it over a long period of time, right? So I don't think it's easy, right? Because the reason why it's not easy is because changing your worldview is inherently like in a way it's kind of changing in a way it's kind of killing yourself in a sense. and that can never happen easily because if you could easily kill yourself, you would have probably done it before. Like by killing yourself, I mean like like killing your perception that limits yourself. Because if it was easy, you would have probably done it before. Because it's like who wants to be stuck in a victim mindset? So like that's just why would you ever want to be like so? If you're stuck in the victim mindset, it's probably um, not just gonna disappear in a few days. Which interestingly enough, that sentence can be used as fuel for the victim mindset itself, right? So, but yeah, I think another component of it, before I leave, is to just be kind of like, is to just really focus on being on your own side, right? Like it's really difficult to solve a problem when you have two parts, like on opposite sides, two parts of yourself on opposite sides. It's the same thing with relationship problems, right? So like the reason why a lot of problems are not solved in relationships because the two people are engaging in a conflict rather than trying to see how they can solve it together in some ways or compromise, or I don't know. Even compromise might be the wrong term, in fact. But something like that. Like I think there was an image about like it's you versus them. That's situation A, and situation B is like you and them versus the problem, and that's very different type of mindset, right? So I think that's kind of the key uh, direction to go towards. It's not always clear how to go towards that. However, obviously, life is never really clear, I think. But I would say life is never like simple, right? But like at least the general direction, I think everyone can agree that solving problems rarely happens when your paths are misaligned with one another. I think, in fact, I would say probably every problem that is solved is a matter of aligning paths, right? Like it's not so much about developing a new sense or like some kind of new skill. Often it's simply about aligning things, which can take skills. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, but aligning is a huge part, and you know, being kind with yourself is a pretty big part of like dealing with the victim mentality. Like, and perhaps even something like just deciding to help other people might be another pretty huge factor of it because a lot of like self-help I notice is really self-centered, as it doesn't really come as a surprise when you look at the term self-help. Um, but like how often do you hear like self-help people talk about engaging in helping other be their best selves? Like it's always about me, and what I want to do and such. And I think it comes from a good place. Uh, Not always. Self-help can be quite toxic, but I think often it can come from a good place. Like wanting the best for yourself and such. But I think sometimes it's good to just take it chill and maybe just I don't know want to make someone else's day. Um, however you can, however you can do it, right? So I guess that's why I'm gonna leave for now. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.